Hello, my beautiful friends. Thank you so much for stopping by. I am so excited for this video because my reading taste has really changed this last year. I've been way more interested in classic reads, and I really want to explore what's out there in the world of classic literature. I didn't read many of the required readings in school. I went to not a public school in America, so I feel like I missed out on a lot of reading that maybe most of you have read. And so I'm just really excited to dive into the world of classic literature. Wanted to give you a list of books that are on my radar. I will not be reading all of these in 2025, but I feel like these are the main ones that I'm going to be pulling from when it comes to my pile of possibilities, you know? So the first one that I'm really excited to read is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. This is such a cute version, by the way. Isn't it just... I just think it's adorable. But Chantel from Chantel Reads All Day, I'll link her video where she's talking about all of this. She is having an L.M. Montgomery readathon or read along, if you will. She's calling it something like the Year of Maud, I think. I'm so excited because I have been so intrigued by L.M. Montgomery, her work and the way she writes. I've read a few little snippets of Anne of Green Gables. I was in the play, you know, stuff like that, but I'm really excited to dive into her work. I think Chantel even said that Anne is actually not her absolute favorite book by L.M. Montgomery. So I'm very intrigued by that, and I'm excited to read Anne with an E. I love Anne's character. I think she's so spunky and so just herself, and I just love her character. So I'm excited to read this in January. If you want to read along with us, you should do it. I am planning on doing it this whole year. Hopefully I'll be able to, but it's like starting with this one and then working through some of the Anne books and then moving off into some of L.M. Montgomery's other work. So I'm really excited to dip my toe this year into L.M. Montgomery. If you saw my top books of 2024 video, I'll link that down below. You know that I absolutely loved Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and I thought I would try my hand at another this year. I really want to read Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen in 2025. This one, I think, is about two sisters. I'm pretty sure they both fall in love with the wrong men or something like that. But I'm really, really, really excited to try my hand at another Jane Austen that I'm not as familiar with the story. I have seen the movie a long time ago, but I'm not as familiar with this story as I am with Pride and Prejudice, so I'm hoping that I don't get lost in translation, but this version is so beautiful. It's the Puffin and Bloom edition, and it's just so beautiful and stunning, and there's a quote on the back: "To wish was to hope, and to hope was to expect." I'm very, very excited to attempt to read another Jane Austen. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm not smart enough sometimes to read a classic, but you don't know until you try it. You know, I don't want to like tell myself I'm stupid when I know that's not true. I just have to try it. And if I don't jive with a writing style, or if it's not at the right time of reading a classic book, then that's okay too, you know? But I don't want to do myself a disservice by not trying to read it, you know? And maybe they could be some of my favorite books of all time, but I'm just limiting myself by saying I'm dumb or something, which isn't even true, okay? We will talk about The Great Gatsby next by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is one of Kaitlin from Pride and Paperback's favorite book. I think it is her favorite book of all time. I have this because of that. I really want to read it because she's my bestie and I want to read my bestie's favorite books, but it's also a classic and I want to see what the hype is about. I love the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. That's pretty old now, but all I really know is that it's the roaring 20s and it's kind of this look at what not to do in your life, which I used to say I was born in the wrong decade. I wanted to be born in the 20s so badly, but now I'm thankful that I'm not, because one, air conditioning, and two, women's rights. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'm really excited to dive into this world of Daisy and Gatsby and see what they get up to. I hope I love it as much as Kaitlin does, but I'm excited to give it a try. This next one, if you've been following me a minute since the beginning of my channel, the videos that you can see on my channel, I have said that I didn't know what I felt about mythology. I felt like maybe it wasn't for me to be reading, and I think at the time that was true. I've also really learned, I've like taken a deeper look at mythology and looked at the virtue and goodness and beauty in it as well, and I'm really wanting to try to read The Odyssey by Homer. This particular version is translated by Emily Wilson. I love that there's a woman who translated it, and I also really am so excited to try to read it. If you didn't know, this is like a very long poem, originally told by speaking, or like saying it to children. Actually, they would say this story to children. It's about gods and goddesses and mortals and men, and specifically Odysseus. He is coming home from war and can't get home. And so there's a bunch of things that happen to him and he does along the way. And I'm just really excited to read the OG text. You know, I've read in my day some retellings and I know some, but I'm excited to read the OG. And I feel like if this was originally a children's story, they would tell it to children. I think I can handle it, right? Right? The next couple of work that I want to try my hand in are Macbeth and Hamlet by Shakespeare. Obviously, I have the No Fear Shakespeare version. I know that some people probably roll their eyes at this, but you know what? I don't care. I've only ever read Romeo and Juliet, and I just want to be able to understand it. So I'm nervous, but excited to try to get into some Shakespeare. I know he's been such a pivotal person in our language, in our art. He kind of seeps into everything, and I just really want to read his work. What's cool about these, if you didn't know, is that there's Common English and the Shakespearean English. And so if you get stuck on something or don't understand, you can just look over and it'll tell you what it means. So it makes me a little less nervous to dive into some Shakespeare, but I also have a really cool book that I just got for my daughters actually, but I feel like I'm going to be using it more in the time being. But I got this Shakespeare's First Folio, All the Plays, a children's edition with illustrations by Emily Sutton. This book is so cool. Like, I think it's super beautiful. There are all of Shakespeare's work in this book, and of course it's condensed, but I feel like it might give me an idea of what the play or sonnet or whatever it is about first, and then I can go read the big work. Very excited to just kind of dive into this, and then if there's one that I feel like my girls might enjoy, reading it to them as well would be really fun. The next one is one that I've been wanting to read for years now, and I'm planning on reading it next Christmas, like Christmas of 2025, but that is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And this particular edition is like a children's, it's not abridged, it's unabridged, and it's a complete work, but it was in the children's section. The introduction is actually by Anthony Horowitz, which I think is really interesting. He's a mystery writer. I'm excited to read it. I think there's some illustrations in here as well, but it's one that I know the story very, very, very well, but I want to read the story. Oh, and I forgot to say, I thought it was interesting. There was like a little preface by Charles Dickens. I have endeavored in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea, which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, or with the season, or with me. May it haunt their house pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, C.D. December 1843. I just think it's about time. Next, I have one that I was not interested in at all until I heard someone talking about it, and that is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I think these covers are so cool. They're just stunning, and they obviously tell the story of the book on the cover. But it is a vastly ambitious novel that is at once a family saga and a modern retelling of the book of Genesis, which really intrigues me. With that alone, when I heard someone talking about this book and how it's like the story of Cain and Abel through telling actually John Steinbeck's family journey and family saga, I was like, what? I need to know. So I bought it. Actually, my husband gave this to me for Christmas, and I'm very excited to read it. If you've read this, let me know what you thought. I love a good story of family drama and family stuff happening, but then you throw in a modern retelling of the book of Genesis. That just really intrigued me. Here we are. Here it is on this list. The next one I want to talk about is Middlemarch by George Eliot. Not me just realizing this year that George Eliot is actually a woman, which I think is interesting. This is a drama, saga, slice of life, I'm pretty sure, about this woman who I think is very beautiful. She has many different suitors. Just take these synopses with a grain of salt, because your girl could be completely wrong. And I probably am, because I haven't read it. And the way I like to read is not knowing much about the synopses, okay? The very first line of the synopsis on Goodreads says, quote, "People are almost always better than their neighbors think they are," end quote. George Eliot's most ambitious novel is a masterly evocation of diverse lives and changing fortunes in a provincial community. I've heard that it's kind of just this sweeping story of provincial life in England. And that might sound boring, but so many people say this is their favorite novel, and so I'm gonna try it. I just heard that it's a really interesting look at life, and it feels slice of life, but there's depth and people's character, and I feel like I could really get along with a story like that. The last two novels make me laugh. I do have some poetry at the end of this that I want to share, but oh my gosh, I don't know why. Like, if you had told me 2 weeks ago that I would be owning this author's books, I mean, I probably would have believed you 2 weeks ago, but I feel like it's just kind of like, what? I own these books? I'm just gonna tell you. It is The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and also Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. And I don't know if I'm even saying his name right, but look, I'm trying my best. So Dostoevsky was a Russian author. He was a Christian. These books look at morality and good and evil. I'm honestly probably gonna read this one in particular. I probably am gonna start it today, to be honest with you, just because of actually Ian Goobly, who is a YouTuber. I'll link his video where he read this book. He's a Christian, and the way he was describing this book was like, okay, I have to read it. I have to read this book. This book was written out of a very dark place of Dostoevsky, because he had previously lost his son. His son had passed away, and also there's tremendous turmoil in Russia, and so it's coming from a place of questioning right and wrong, questioning God in an honest way. The way that Ian talked about this one particular poem that's in this book, it's where Jesus comes into this modern at this time, Spain, starts to do miracles, and the religious leader is super unhappy about that. And he brings Jesus in and berates him for making free will a thing and how hard it is to choose good over evil, and how could Jesus do that. And Jesus stays silent the whole time. And anyways, I don't know much more about that, but it just really intrigues me to hear what he has to say. Also, I've heard that this is like the best novel ever written, and I just want to see about that. I don't know if I'll agree, but I want to see about it. And I think that there is value in looking at pieces of work that you may or may not agree with. I've also heard people say this is the best argument for atheism. But then I've also heard people say that this book led them to Jesus. So, you know, It's just really intriguing to me. But at the heart of this, it's a trial. It's a murder mystery, a courtroom drama. It's an exploration of family dynamics because there's 3 brothers and their father, and the father ends up murdered by one of the brothers, and you're trying to figure out who did it. But it's way more than that, obviously. I just feel like, I don't know, I just deeply intrigues me. It feels like a book that will make me think like no other. So it's written in Russian, obviously, originally, but this one is translated by Richard Pavir and Larissa Volokomsky. I've heard that this is one of the better translations to choose, so if you are looking into it, don't just pick up any translation, I guess is what I'm saying. I've heard this is like easy, but also stays true to the way that Dostoevsky wrote. So just throwing that out there. This is also translated by the same people, but it's Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This one is really intriguing to me because it's about a man who murders someone and gets away with it, I think. But I think there's like obviously deeper morality and what happens to this man, what it does to him and the society around him. I don't know. I don't know much about it other than that. Very intrigued to see what this is all about. I really want to sample some poems and poets and poetry this coming year and onward, but I feel like I'm really excited about finding poets that I'm really excited about and really connect with deeply. I think poetry is such an interesting form of literature that really is like no other. You connect with it, it's beautiful, it's lyrical, and I'm just excited to see who I like in that world. And the first one, I got this book from my husband for Christmas, but it is William Wordsworth. And this is like 100 selected poems from him, but look how pretty this book is. It's really beautiful. All I know is that he really wanted to make poetry for the common man and to move away from like highbrow whatever, make it accessible to people. And so I think that I'm going to be able to read his work, because that's part of the problem with a lot of poetry is I don't understand it. But if I sit with it, hopefully I'll be able to understand his work. And then I do have Emily Dickinson. I'm nervous about Emily Dickinson. I really want to love her, but every time I try to read, I don't understand it. So I'm just gonna keep trying. Try to find the ones that I understand or jive with, or maybe like looking up, what does this mean? Like looking up the poem and trying to figure that out that way. But I don't want to give up because obviously it's Emily Dickinson. I need to understand, you know? I'm very excited to try again with Emily Dickinson. And then the last poet that I really want to read some of his work is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I just recently watched a movie about his life and the tragedy that his life had. I had no idea. The way his wife passed away, his faith went through a journey. He's a Christian. I find it so intriguing. So I'm super interested in finding his work. I can't find his poetry in bookstores, so I might just have to get it online or something. But I am excited to try my hand at Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, because I think when someone goes through such dark pain, there's a beauty there, right? Like there is beauty that comes out of it in art form a lot of times. So very, very intrigued. There you have it. These are certainly not all the books that I have. I want to continue on reading Agatha Christie. She's like a classic mystery writer. You could go that direction with classics. I do want to continue on in the Miss Marple series, which, let me grab that book. So I guess I wasn't done. Miss Marple. This is actually the first book in the Miss Marple series, or not the first book, first novel. There is a short story collection that comes before this, but I digress. I want to read this series in entirety. I'm very excited to. I've read a couple of Miss Marple, but definitely want to read this one in 2025. This one is The Murder at the Vicarage, and very, very excited to read it. I don't know if I'm always a Poirot person when it comes to Agatha Christie, but I really love Miss Marple. So I think I'm a Miss Marple Agatha Christie girly. And then I love her non-detective ones, like And Then There Were None. I love that book. So I do have more classic books on my bookshelves downstairs, but these are the ones that are my main, very intriguing to me ones. Let me know if you've read any of these. I feel very nervous, but also really excited to start on my classics journey. If you have any resources that might help me in reading any of these that has helped you in your journey, let me know what classic books are on your radar to read. I would love to hear and possibly add them to my own list as well. I hope you enjoyed. I pray that you have a blessed day whenever you're watching this, just as you feel the pull to deeper knowledge and deeper meaning of life, that you find Jesus there. He is the meaning of life and He is the truth. I just pray that He reveals Himself to you in that way. But until next time, my friends, I will see you in my next bookish video. Bye!